My team and I won an industry award worth millions in publicity. Instead of gratitude, we got punished. Stop outshining others, my boss said, doubling our workload. My team looked defeated. I just smiled and said, "That's enough, meeting in my office right now." What I revealed left them stunned. The applause from last week's award ceremony was still ringing in my ears when the silence hit. That thick, choking silence that only happens in a conference room right before something awful is about to be said. Ellis, our division director, stood at the head of the table with his trademark smirk, the kind that made your stomach twist. Behind him, the Golden Industry Award gleamed on the shelf, the one my team had won for innovation in global logistics. And yet, no one in that room looked happy. "Let me be perfectly clear," Ellis said, tapping the folder in front of him like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "Your recent success has created some tension in the department." "Tension?" I repeated, keeping my voice even. I'd learned long ago that anger only made men like Ellis more comfortable. We delivered record profits. We tripled efficiency metrics. We saved the company over $7 million in one quarter. And that's a problem. Ellis adjusted his cufflinks, the faint glint of his Rolex catching the light. "You're outshining your peers, Lisa. It's creating resentment around the table." 12 exhausted faces stared back at him. My team, the people who had worked nights, weekends, holidays to pull off the impossible. "I'm sorry," said Nora, our analytics lead, blinking in disbelief. "We're being punished for doing our jobs too well." Ellis gave a thin smile. "No one's being punished. We're simply rebalancing workloads to maintain harmony across divisions. The corporate euphemism for obedience." "So," said Marcus, our systems engineer, his voice shaking slightly, "we're doing double the work now with the same pay." Ellis folded his hands. "That's correct. I trust a high-performing team like yours can handle it. Consider it a compliment." The room went dead silent. I could almost hear the collective breaking point of 12 people who had given everything. A few chairs creaked. No one dared to look at me. "I missed my brother's graduation for that project," whispered Alina, our project manager. "And now we're being told it made others feel bad." Ellis straightened his tie. "You'll find that in any large organization, individual glory doesn't last long. What matters is stability." I felt something click inside me. That strange, cold clarity that shows up right before the storm. "Understood," I said calmly, rising from my seat. "Everyone from Team Delta, my office." Now, Ellis frowned. "We're not finished here, Lisa." "Oh, we are," I said, gathering my notes. "You've made your position very clear." I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. But as we walked out, one by one, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. The silence was louder than any protest could have been. Once everyone had crowded into my small office, I shut the blinds and locked the door. For a few moments, no one spoke. The air was heavy, brittle. "This is where you tell us to hang in there, right?" Marcus said finally. "That we should just be grateful we still have jobs." "No," I said quietly, leaning against my desk. "This is where I tell you something I've been keeping to myself for a few weeks." 12 pairs of eyes lifted, tired but curious. 2 months ago, I continued, I received a message from someone on the board. Her name is Miriam Hall. That name changed the air instantly. Miriam Hall, co-founder of the company, semi-retired, and practically a legend. She reached out because she noticed something strange in our division metrics. How every team that starts overperforming eventually gets restructured or dissolved. "You mean sabotaged?" said Nora bluntly. I nodded. Her words, not mine. Elena frowned. "So what does she want?" She wanted proof. Real proof that innovation here isn't rewarded. It's smothered. She asked me to keep going, to push as hard as possible to see what happens when a team delivers something undeniable. Marcus blinked. "So this was a test." I shook my head. "No, the work we did was real. The results were real, but now we have our answer. They punished us for excellence, and now we act." A low murmur swept through the room. "How do you act?" Nora asked cautiously. I reached into my drawer and pulled out a folder. Thick, bound, and stamped confidential. "What's that?" "Options," I said. "Miriam and I have been planning something. A new venture, independent, fully funded. She's offering us a chance to build what they keep destroying. Innovation without punishment. Every one of you has a place there." No one moved. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Are you saying leave, all of us?" I looked at the tired, brilliant faces around me. The same people who turned late nights into miracles. Yes, I said simply. Leave, together, silence again. But this time it was electric. Somewhere deep in my chest, I felt the tension shift from despair to possibility. Ellis thought he was teaching us humility, but what he really did was give us a reason to rise. And he had no idea what was coming next. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the folder Miriam had sent me, the one that could change everything. Her proposal was bold, almost reckless. A fully funded innovation subsidiary under a separate holding company, free from the bureaucracy that had been strangling progress for years. Each of my team members would receive a stake, full creative control, and protection clauses to prevent exploitation. But it was more than that. It was an opportunity to build something clean, something that didn't punish people for caring. Still, I knew the risk. People had mortgages, kids, student loans. Walking away from the stability of a corporate paycheck wasn't something you decided overnight. By 7 a.m., I was back at the office running on caffeine and conviction. When I entered, the usual buzz was gone. My team sat at their desks in silence, the award plaque glinting mockingly in the corner. The congratulations banner from last week still hung crooked on the wall. Someone had torn part of it down. I called them into the conference room. Not Ellis's, ours. Before we do anything, I begin. I need to know where everyone stands. You've all read the proposal, be honest. Marcus spoke first. I've been in this company for 8 years. Every time we break a record, we get reassigned or ignored. I'm done. Nora crossed her arms, her eyes tired but sharp. I want to believe this isn't suicide. But if Miriam's really backing it, maybe it's worth the risk. Alina hesitated. My husband's between jobs. Losing steady income isn't something I can just gamble with. I get it, I said softly. This isn't about pressure. It's about options, Dylan. Our quiet data specialist finally spoke. You think Ellis will just let 9 people walk out with the company's best clients? He'll bury us. He wasn't wrong. I'd spent years watching Ellis maneuver. Always smiling, always ruthless. That's why we do this carefully, I said. No leaks, no grand exits. We prepare our transition files, hand everything over cleanly. No one can accuse us of sabotage. Nora raised an eyebrow. You're talking like we've already decided. Not yet, I replied. But we need to act like we might. For the next few days, we played the part of the perfect team. We hit deadlines. We attended meetings. We smiled at Ellis's hollow pep talks. But behind the curtain, we were building something. Every lunch break turned into a strategy session. Dylan set up encrypted cloud storage for our research archives. Alina and Marcus mapped out which client contracts were ending soon, the ones we could legally approach once our non-compete period passed. I even found myself in a quiet corner cafe one evening meeting Miriam face to face for the first time. She was older than I expected. Silver hair, steady gaze, the kind of presence that silences a room without needing to raise her voice. You're certain about this? She asked, stirring her tea. Once you move, there's no going back. I'm certain about the people I'm bringing, I said. They deserve better than what this place has become. Miriam nodded. Good. Then it's time we stopped waiting for change and started making it. Before leaving, she handed me a small flash drive. Everything you need to register the new entity. The paperwork is already approved. Just pick a date. I slipped it into my pocket, my heart pounding. The weight of it felt heavier than it should have. By Friday, the tension was palpable. Ellis strutted through the office that morning with fake cheer. Big week ahead, team, he said loudly. We've decided to shift some of your projects to other departments for alignment. Translation. Dismantling us piece by piece, Marcus muttered under his breath. He's cutting us apart before we can even move. I looked up. Then we moved faster. That evening, when everyone had clocked out, I called a private meeting in the office break room. Lights off, blinds drawn. Here's where we stand, I began, sliding Miriam's updated documents across the table. Funding confirmed. Legal protections in place. The new entity goes live Monday morning. Gasps, whispers, then silence. Dylan rubbed his temples. That's in 2 days. Yes, I said. We walk on Monday, submit our resignations together, and walk out with dignity. We don't steal clients. We don't take confidential data. We just leave and start building. Alina's voice cracked. You really think they'll just let us go? I met her eyes. They can't stop people from quitting. And if Ellis tries anything, He'll have to explain to the board why the award-winning team all vanished at once. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Marcus stood holding out his hand. Let's do it. One by one, the others followed. Nora, Dylan, Alina, Sage, Faye, and the rest. 12 hands joined in silent agreement. We weren't rebels. We weren't saboteurs. We were exhausted professionals reclaiming our worth. As they left that night, I lingered by the office window. Across the street, the city lights blurred into motion. Alive, relentless, unstoppable. In that reflection, I saw something I hadn't in months. Purpose. Ellis thought fear would keep us small. He didn't realize that when you push people past their limit, you don't break them. You forge them. And come Monday, he would learn just how strong we'd become. Monday morning arrived colder than usual. I woke before sunrise, the city still half asleep. My thoughts are louder than the traffic outside. On the counter, 12 sealed envelopes sat in a neat row, each one containing a resignation letter I'd reviewed twice over. Every signature represented courage, every page a quiet rebellion. I poured coffee, my hands trembling slightly, and told myself it was the caffeine. It wasn't. By 8:15, the office floor buzzed with its usual mix of chatter and keyboard clicks. Ellis's door was already closed. He was probably polishing another speech about team harmony. I walked past his office without looking in, my pulse steady, my expression calm. No one could know what was coming. One by one, my team arrived. Marcus nodded at me as he passed my desk, eyes sharp but determined. Nora mouthed a quick ready. Even Alina, who'd been the most hesitant, gave a small, trembling smile. We had planned everything down to the minute. At 8:30, we gathered by the glass wall outside the main conference room. Our 12 envelopes sat in a small box I carried against my chest. When I pushed the door open, Ellis looked up from his laptop. Lisa, is this about the new workload structure? I told you the final decision. This isn't about that, I said, placing the box on the table. He frowned, watching as my team filed in behind me, silent, composed, standing shoulder to shoulder. I lifted the lid and slid the envelopes across the glossy surface one by one. What's this? He asked. Our resignations, I said simply. The sound in the room shifted. Air conditioning, footsteps outside, someone dropping a pen, everything suddenly louder. Ellis blinked, his face unreadable for a moment, then twisted into disbelief. You're quitting, all of you? Yes, I said, effective immediately. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You're joking. You think you can walk out and I'll just let you? I'm not asking permission. Ellis's jaw tightened. You realize how this looks? Abandoning your projects mid-quarter, jeopardizing client contracts. You'll never get hired in this industry again. Nora stepped forward. We've given this company years of our lives. You doubled our workload after we brought home an award. If you think we owe you loyalty after that, you've lost touch with reality. Careful, he snapped. You're walking a fine line between ungrateful and self-destructive. I folded my arms. We're not being ungrateful, Ellis. We're reclaiming self-respect. For a moment, no one breathed. Then he leaned back, smirking. You'll regret this, Lisa. All of you will. You think Miriam Holt is going to protect you. She's barely on the board anymore. I didn't answer. He didn't know that the paperwork for the new subsidiary had already been filed, signed off by Miriam, and quietly approved by 2 other board members. We weren't walking into chaos. We were walking into structure. Ours. When we turned to leave, Ellis called after me. You're finished in this industry. Mark my words, I didn't look back. You've already said that to better people than me. And yet somehow they're still standing. We didn't go home. We walked together to a small co-working space Miriam had rented for us across town. The moment we stepped inside, it hit me. The smell of fresh paint, new desks, untouched walls. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Marcus let out a low whistle. Hard to believe this is real. It's real, I said, setting my bag down. But it's going to get messy. He looked at me, brow furrowed. You think Ellis will come after us? He'll try. He can't afford to let 9 top performers walk out quietly. He'll spin the story however he needs to. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A notification from our internal messaging system. A company-wide email had just gone out. Effective immediately. Several members of Team Delta have been reassigned following internal restructuring. We wish them the best in their future endeavors. I could almost hear Ellis dictating it, carefully sanitizing the truth. But what caught my attention wasn't the message. It was the time stamp, 8 minutes after we'd left the building. Nora leaned over my shoulder. He's already rewriting the narrative. Of course he is, I muttered. That's what people like Ellis do. But even as frustration bubbled up, something steadier anchored me. Resolve. He could twist the story, but he couldn't erase our work, our results, or what we were building. Now, that afternoon, we unpacked laptops, shared passwords, and divided tasks. Faye set up new databases. Marcus tested software architecture. Elena contacted a few vendors we'd worked with over the years. Strictly post-contract, no violations. It wasn't glamorous, but there was a spark in the air, an energy I hadn't felt in months. Around 5 p.m., Miriam walked in, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Well," she said, surveying the room. "You did it barely," I said. "Ellis has already started damage control," she nodded. "Let him." The board's eyes are on him now, not you. The results speak louder than his spin. For a moment, I just looked around the room. The tired but smiling faces, the sound of keyboards clicking, the faint scent of coffee brewing in a machine someone had brought from home. It wasn't the polished office we'd left behind, but it was alive with purpose. Miriam leaned closer. "You know, Lisa, most people complain about the system. Very few actually leave it." I smiled faintly. Maybe it was time someone did. Outside, the city lights flickered one by one. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was surviving corporate life. I was building something. And somewhere across town, I imagined Ellis pacing in his office, realizing that the people he underestimated had just done the one thing he never could. We started over. By Wednesday morning, the honeymoon phase was over. Our new workspace buzzed with energy, but tension hummed just beneath the surface. We were still waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when it did, it landed hard. At 9:02 a.m., Nora burst through the glass doors, phone in hand, eyes wide. "Lisa, you need to see this." She handed me her phone. On the screen was a post on a professional networking site, a statement from Ellis shared by the company's official page. "Our organization remains committed to integrity and teamwork. Unfortunately, a small group of employees chose to resign abruptly after internal concerns were raised about data accuracy in recent award submissions. We wish them well as they pursue independent ventures." My stomach turned cold. It was subtle but deliberate. He was painting us as unethical, implying the award we'd won was based on falsified data. Marcus slammed his coffee mug down. "He's calling us liars." "Worse," said Nora quietly, "he's calling us cheaters." I read the statement again. It was masterful in its vagueness, just enough to make people question our credibility without saying anything that could get him sued. By noon, it had hundreds of comments. Some were supportive, but many weren't. I knew those results were too good to be true. Classic corporate fraud story in the making. Our inbox is filled with polite but cautious emails from old clients. We'll be pausing discussions until things are clarified. Exactly what Ellis wanted. "We can't let him control the story," said Marcus, pacing. "We should release a statement, too." "No," I said firmly. "If we react now, it'll look defensive. We need proof." Faye looked up from her laptop. "I've been going through the project archives we saved. Every file, every time-stamp, it's all clean. If he's altered the company's copies, we can expose it." Miriam, who had joined our morning call from her home office, nodded. "You'll need to tread carefully. If you accuse him publicly without airtight evidence, he'll sue for defamation. But if you have proof of manipulation, the board will bury him." "I'll find it," Fa said quietly. And she did. By Thursday night, she called me over, eyes burning with determination. "Lisa, look at this." On her screen was a set of access logs from our last week at the company. Ellis had authorized maintenance on our performance dashboards. The same day, several key files were modified. "Look," Faye said, highlighting the timeline. He backdated entries. Our verified data was replaced with lower numbers. It was exactly what we needed. Proof that Ellis had falsified performance records to justify discrediting us. I sent it straight to Miriam, who called within minutes. "This changes everything. Send me everything you've got. I'll bring it to the board." The next morning, the email came. "Board of Directors, emergency session, 11 a.m. attendees required." Lisa Mendes, former Team Delta lead. My throat went dry. It was happening. At 10:45, I walked into the corporate building for the first time since our resignation. The same receptionist greeted me, hesitant smile, clearly aware of the rumors. My badge had been deactivated, so she called security to escort me to the boardroom. When the doors opened, Ellis was already there, confident, relaxed, the picture of control. "Lisa," he said smoothly, "good to see you. I trust your new project is going well." I didn't answer. Around the table sat 11 board members, and at the far end, Miriam, calm as ever. She gave me a subtle nod. Julian, the chairman, began. "We've been informed of conflicting claims regarding last quarter's data. Mr. Ellis, you've alleged inaccuracies in Team Delta's submissions. Miss Mendes, you've countered with accusations of falsification. We're here to clarify." Ellis leaned forward. "The numbers were inflated. I took corrective action to maintain integrity. Unfortunately, Miss Mendes and her team saw this as punishment." "Integrity?" I said quietly, pulling out a USB drive. "Would integrity include editing verified data to make a high-performing team look like underachievers?" Ellis froze. I plugged the drive into the boardroom display. "These are the original files, time-stamped, archived, and cross-verified by our cloud storage before we left. You'll see a clear pattern. Altered entries made under Ellis's admin credentials. Fa's clean documentation scrolled across the big screen, each time stamp another nail in his coffin." Julian's expression hardened. "Mr. Ellis, do you have an explanation?" Ellis opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Those logs must be fabricated." Miriam spoke, voice cutting through the tension like glass. "They're not. It has already verified them against our internal server. Lisa's files are authentic silence." The air felt heavier by the second. Finally, Julian sighed. "This is serious misconduct. Ellis, you're suspended effective immediately pending further investigation." Ellis stood abruptly. "You're making a mistake. I did what was necessary to protect." "Enough," Julian said sharply. "You protected yourself, not the company." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. I exhaled slowly, my body shaking from the tension I'd been holding for days. Miriam looked at me, a faint smile on her lips. "You did well. Most people would have folded under that kind of pressure." "It wasn't just me," I said. "My team's the reason this even came to light." Julian nodded. "And now, thanks to that, we can start fixing what's broken." As I left the building, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "How did it go?" I typed back. "Better than expected. But it's not over yet," because I knew Ellis. Men like him didn't fade quietly. And something told me he wasn't done fighting. For a few days after the board meeting, the silence was almost eerie. No angry calls, no threats, no messages from Ellis, just quiet, the kind that follows a storm. My team worked in cautious relief, still half expecting something to crash down. But the days passed and nothing came until the email that changed everything. It was Friday afternoon when Nora called across the co-working space. "Lisa, check your inbox." Now I opened it and stared. The subject line read, "Leadership Update, Corporate Announcement." Inside was a statement from the company. "After a thorough investigation, the board has confirmed discrepancies in performance reporting. The division director responsible has been terminated, effective immediately. We remain grateful to former Team Delta members for their integrity and contributions to our success." Ellis was gone, fired officially. For a long time, none of us spoke. Then Marcus laughed quietly, shaking his head. He really thought he could bury us. Nora leaned back in her chair, exhaling hard. "You think he's somewhere reading this right now?" "Maybe," I said, "but honestly, it doesn't matter anymore because for the first time in years, we weren't surviving someone else's game. We were building our own." Our new company, Orion Systems, grew faster than any of us had dared to predict. What started as 12 people sharing rented desks became 40 employees within 3 months. Clients who had once been off-limits reached out to us quietly, saying the same thing. "We want to work with the people who actually deliver. We never poached anyone. We didn't have to." Results spoke louder than Ellis's lies ever could. Every day felt like a mix of chaos and purpose. We worked long hours again, but they didn't feel like the same endless grind. There was laughter during late-night calls, impromptu pizza runs, and whiteboards covered in wild ideas no one would have dared suggest back at the old company. Miriam visited once a week, moving slower these days but still sharp as ever. One afternoon, she pulled me aside after a team meeting. "Do you know why I backed you, Lisa?" I shrugged. "Because we got results." She smiled faintly. No, because you refused to turn bitterness into your brand. You fought back, but you didn't destroy. You rebuilt. Most people never make it that far. I didn't have an answer for that. Maybe because part of me knew she was right. Revenge had stopped being the goal weeks ago. What drove me now was something quieter, steadier, a need to prove that excellence didn't have to come at the cost of humanity. Still, it wasn't all smooth. There were nights I lay awake wondering if we'd taken on too much. Cash flow was tight, deadlines relentless, and we were learning on the fly. But every time doubt crept in, something happened to push it back. Like the morning Alina arrived with tears in her eyes. "Remember the client we lost last year because Ellis cut our budget?" she said, waving an email. "They want us back under Orion. Full contract, no conditions." The room erupted in cheers. That afternoon, as I watched my team clinking coffee cups instead of champagne flutes, I realized something simple but powerful. We weren't running away from the system anymore. We'd built a better one. 2 months later, I received an unexpected invitation. The annual industry summit, the same one where our team had been honored the year before, wanted me to give the keynote speech. The irony wasn't lost on me. The night before the event, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the last time I'd stood on that stage, smiling under bright lights, unaware of the betrayal waiting behind the applause. Now I'd be returning not as an employee but as a founder. When I finally stepped up to the podium, the room hushed. Dozens of familiar faces stared back at me, some curious, some skeptical. I took a breath and began. A year ago, my team stood on the stage accepting an award we were proud of. We thought recognition meant security. Instead, it exposed how fragile success can be when leadership fears those who excel. A ripple went through the audience. I learned something valuable since then. I continued. Punishing excellence doesn't make a company stronger, it kills innovation. And when you punish people for caring, they stop giving you their best. I paused, scanning the room. But here's the truth. When people are free to build without fear, they'll create something no one can suppress. That's what real leadership looks like. Applause began slowly, then spread like a wave. For the first time, it didn't feel hollow. It felt earned. Afterward, as I stepped off the stage, Miriam caught my arm. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said, smiling. "We did." That night, I walked home instead of taking a cab. The city was quiet, street lights, reflecting off glass towers that once symbolized everything I thought I needed. I passed the old building where Ellis had tried to break us. The lights on the upper floors were dark now. New management, I'd heard a different kind of leadership. Maybe in some small way, we'd started a ripple effect. As I crossed the street, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "We signed 3 new clients today. Guess who referred to them? The board." I smiled, tucking my phone away. Sometimes the best revenge isn't humiliation or victory. It's progress. It's walking past the wreckage of what tried to destroy you, holding your head high, knowing you turned the wound into something that grows. Ellis taught me that power can corrupt. But my team, they taught me something far greater. That excellence doesn't need permission, and it never ever needs to apologize.